Hello there and welcome to another episode of Designer Under Influence. This is going to be a third episode in the series of cybersecurity training for employees and all of us who are using computers, internet, phones to do our business and manage our day-to-day life. My partner in crime and co-host is founder of Arc IT. His name is Boris Rapport. Boris, say hi.
Hey, everyone. Good morning if you're watching us in the morning, because we're recording in the morning. As Alex said, today is episode number 3, and it's very, very interesting episode, so stay tuned.
Yeah, well, so we'll let the audience be the judge of that. But I tell you what, we want to talk about using mobile phones, and a lot of us think that, hey, a mobile phone, what could possibly go wrong, right? It's been pretty secure up to now. And I think, we pay less attention to our intentions when it comes to mobile phone. We just kind of click around. It's all fast. It's moving super fast. But there are real threats out there. In fact, right before this recording, Boris and I were just having a conversation, and he was telling me a fascinating story that just happened to him and his family. And this is something that we thought was, wow, it's worth telling you the story in a raw format. So basically we had a Microsoft Teams meeting and we just had the recording going, and he sort of told me the story and we had this conversation. I think this is very important. This is the story around how even something basic like looking for and calling eBay support service can lead into you losing access and potentially exposing all of your bank accounts, all of your financial information to the crooks. So let's get right in the story, and then we'll come out on the other end and walk you through some of the best practices.
I had an eBay account that got hacked, and these guys sold some merchandise. eBay really cracked down on them. They told us our account was hacked, and there was some bad activity. So basically, they got these guys. We changed the passwords. Everything seems to be okay. So then eBay started sending us bills because we sold merchandise, so we owe them fees. So in any case, so they sent us these bills about fees, right? And it's like $20, and I wanted to take care of this. It just was always kind of in the background, right? And not really a priority. It's $20, and I don't even use that eBay account anymore. We just buy stuff from eBay once every, couple of years. Like we buy perfume probably. So finally, they sent us that the account is suspended and we're going to start charging you 1.5% interest, blah, 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 collections. So I'm like, okay, Susha, can you just take care of this? Let's try to find the eBay support number and give them a call, right? And see if we can figure this out. So, first thing is there's no eBay support number. Like if you're looking for support, like it's either chat or online, and there is no phone number anywhere to be found. So what my wife does, she goes on her phone and she types into Google eBay phone support, and she gets a link that seems to have a phone number. Obviously, it's the first one that shows up. She clicks on it, and it looks on the phone. It looks great, eBay and support number and so on. So she calls the number and she explains the situation. Now, I wasn't privy to conversation, so this is kind of what I'm deciphering from her story, right? She calls the number and the guy's like, oh, yeah, we can definitely help you. And his, it's speaking with an accent, so it sounds like it's somewhere, India, Pakistan, wherever, that region. And he's like, yeah, we can help you. And he gets her to install remote control software on her phone as part of the process. Yeah, I need to look at your screen, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, can I do this on my laptop? And he's like, no, on the phone is better. And then he goes to show her, like, there's this website, and I'll have to get the name because it's in my Google search. But there's this website where it simulates a hacking attack on Pentagon, right? It's just a simulation, right? It's just a cartoon. It's kind of taken from that movie back in the day where, remember the guy through a modem attacked Pentagon? I forget what it's called, but Matthew Broderick was the main guy. So it basically uses that as kind of, similar things. It's like old text, green text, like the Matrix style text, and you click on the folders and it shows you like, oh, you've been attacked. So he goes and he shows her that. And he's like, your phone is under attack. So, you basically need to log into your accounts so we can clean some stuff up. And he gets her to log in to her Chase account. Now the only problem is, thank God, there's a 2FA, and I get the code on my phone. So she comes to me and she's like, "Can I get the code from your phone?"
Wow.
And I'm like, "What do you need it for?" And he's like, "Well, the eBay guys say we need to connect our account, the right account, to eBay, because they had some Wells Fargo account on there that doesn't work anymore, blah, blah." Like, I mean, beautiful job of selling the story to my wife. And I'm like, "Okay, hold on. Why do they need this? We just need to clean stuff up." And she's like, "Well, here, talk to them." And I'm talking to him. He's like, "Oh, yeah, there's a virus on your wife's phone." And he walks me through this too. I'm like, some weird cartoon. I'm like, what does this have to do with eBay? He's like, "Well, we're going to clean this up, but we need to make sure that you can log into your account." And we're trying to log in, and she's still trying to log in, but since the code is coming to my phone, and she's not typing it correctly or something, it doesn't work. And he's like, "Well, can you install?" And I didn't know that she installed the remote software on, right? And he's like, "Can you install this software on your phone so that we can get this account set up?" I'm like, "Okay, hold on, what? You want me to install remote control on my phone?" No. And then I basically hang up on her phone and I uninstall the software. And then, we backed up her phone, and it was backing up all night last night because all the pictures and all the videos, and for some reason the backup didn't run. And I'm gonna factory reset her phone today. But basically, and we'd never logged in, but I changed my Chase password, my Wells Fargo password, all the bank account passwords, and Amazon password, like, all the kind of tools that she uses. Yeah. But basically, that's the end of the story. I hung up, uninstalled the software, and it was a scam. So then I'm like, "What did you do? How did you even get to this guy? How do you know this is eBay?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not IT, right?" She starts giving me this whole thing because she obviously felt scared and frustrated. But she went to a Google search, and I'm like, "Well, this doesn't." And it was a 209 number. I'm like, "What kind of customer service number starts with a 209? It has to be an 800 number at least, right?" Although they can buy those easily too. Yeah. But like, why did you decide on to call this? And like when you go from your phone, it looks all formatted. When I went from a computer, it's like all out of whack and just like crap. But it was a Google ad, right? So Google ad that they buy.
Oh, she clicked on Google ad.
Yeah, it was a Google ad that they buy. But on the phone, the Google ads don't look as it's not as clear because it's all compressed, right? But they bought a Google ad as eBay support. So scammers, right, buy Google ads to then redirect you.
Wow. So, I mean, hell, wow. I mean,
True
most
story.
people
Happened
can't even
yesterday.
tell the difference between ads and this and that's pretty elaborate. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, those are the levels, and her whole excuse is like, "What? I don't deal with this. I'm not IT." And my point is, well, this is what common sense is, right? It's just like walking down the street and looking left and looking right for traffic. Like, you have to pay attention to these things because these cameras are everywhere, and people don't like. I mean, she would have given him the keys to the kingdom, basically, if it wasn't for that.
Oh yeah, all
But
that counts. Yeah.
imagine how many people are actually falling for it. I mean, we got lucky because the code came to my phone.
Wow, this was fascinating, unexpected, and it's scary. I'll be honest with you. It's scary. It just makes me think about how my teams and the different businesses I run operate day to day, personal life as well as work life, using the phone, and how a simple support call can turn into a disaster. Boris, you got to walk us through some best practices on using mobile phones. They're not complicated, but we need to be aware. You said something about crossing the street. Can you reuse that analogy for me?
Yeah, I think we need to be just aware of these things, right? And always have it top of mind. This is the world that we live in now, right? Just like, and I'm not going to say common sense because common sense is different for everybody, but just, you have certain rules to live by. And one of those rules is, when you cross the street, look both ways to make sure no car is coming. So this should be a similar type of kind of response, right? Your mind has to have it built in as a response where you're much more aware of what's going on in when you're browsing the internet, especially using your mobile device.
So walk us through some of the best practices. Let's just dive right in.
Yeah. So I think where we need to start, and this is less to do with browsing, but just in general, a best practice is make sure that when you're installing apps, you're only installing apps on your phone from, an approved application store, right? Whether it's your Apple App Store or it's your Google Play Store on Android. And I think right now most of the phones that are sold are actually locked down to only allow app installation from those stores. But if you have a phone that's more open and you have the ability to install apps, just don't install it from the Apple stores, because that's where they're curated and they're checked to make sure that there's no security issues inside of them. So that would be number one. I think next we need to, again, put it at our top of mind, where if we're talking to somebody, we're talking to a support person, and they're asking us for remote access, right? We want to kind of validate multiple times why they need remote access and make sure that the story actually matches to the reality, right? So if you're just looking to resolve an issue with your account, I don't think the person on the other end of the line should be asking to access your phone or computer for that matter. So that would be number two.
Let me dig here for just a second. Do a slight expansion here. So is there any reason at all, Boris, that a support representative for whatever company, for whatever service you're trying to contact, needs a remote access on your phone? Are there cases you can think of where you would allow remote access to your phone from somebody on the other end?
So I'm going to say no.
And so there you have it. Don't allow remote access on the other. Now, different story is when you're working with an IT company like Arc IT, and who are your providers, your contact person, you've talked to them before, that's a little different story. Even that, you probably wouldn't need remote access to their phones, would you?
Most of the time we would not, no. And we currently don't allow that capability for our support personnel. We only have remote access to computers. And again, that's because we are the trusted provider and we were able to install our software initially on their computer. So I think you're right. Just don't allow remote access to your phone unless you explicitly know who the person is and what they're doing.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on. Number three.
All right, number three. Well, this one, I had to think about it a little bit, but yeah, don't ever search for support phone numbers on Google, right? Try to go to the company's website if you're trying to get support from a company and use the channels that are available on their website to initiate your support request. I think that is a very important to understand, because Google can have all kinds of various information, as we saw in the story, and that information may not necessarily be 100% true. So don't look for support phone numbers on Google. Use the channels that are available to you.
As nice of a hack as that seems to be able to shortcut, browsing some company's website in order to find support channels, just type it into Google and get to it. That is a dangerous practice. And it's turning out to be a dangerous practice. It didn't come out to be as such, but it is. And a lot of people taking advantage of that. So you don't want to be taken advantage of. And so to do that, go on the company's website. Let's say you call in Chase, go to Chase website and look for their support. If they don't have a phone support, I'm not saying Chase doesn't, but I'm saying if the company you're working with does not have a phone support, then use the channels they have in order to reach out. They're not going to magically create a phone number when you search Google. Sometimes you can flash it out, but a lot of times, as it's turning out, you exposing yourself to some unscrupulous people who pose as such companies. So use the intended company's website and use their support channels. And look, if you hate the fact that they don't have a phone number, maybe don't do business with them. But going and forcing it through Google can be a dangerous practice. And sorry to say, I hate to say that because I love that hack, but you heard what happened. So anyway, let's move on. Number four.
All right. So number four is, this is a common phone best practice. So I want to make sure that everybody is doing it is make sure your phone auto locks and that it requires your biometrics to unlock, right? You're not using a PIN. It's much easier to unlock, by the way, using a fingerprint or, face recognition may be a little more challenging, but, set up a fingerprint, make sure your phone auto locks after 15 seconds. Because if your phone doesn't lock and, you lose your phone, I mean, let's be honest, like our lives are in this device, right? So we want to protect it as much as possible. So using biometrics and locking your phone always, I think is a must nowadays.
Okay, that's number 4. Number 5?
Number 5, so just in general for protecting all of your online accounts, the best practice in the last couple of years, and it's trending that way, and we should be on top of it, is basically setting up two-factor authentication. Whether it's something really simple as an SMS text code to your phone, which saved us in the story, or something a little more complex where you're using an app like a Google Authenticator or a Duo Mobile app to generate passcodes. You want to have two-factor authentication set up. I mean, at least on all your critical accounts, but I'm going to go a step further and say on all of your accounts that have to do with online, where you're storing credit card information, Netflix. I mean, I even have it on my kids' Xbox Play accounts. I have two-factor authentication set up. Anywhere where there's a credit card stored where purchases can be made or any other banking information is available, that needs to be locked down with two-factor authentication because the password is just not a secure mechanism anymore.
Can you give a very quick high level on what two-factor authentication is? And do you mean we have to have confirmation codes for every single time we log in, or there's some sort of like a browser memory that comes in effect? Like, can you talk us through this?
Yeah, so good points, Alex. So in general, what two-factor authentication is basically providing an additional method of authenticating you as a person, not only based on your password, so something that right, your password, but also based on something that you have, a token, which most of the time is our mobile phone, right? This thing is always with us. So it's, some smart people figured out that it's the best thing to use as another authentication mechanism, right? And how can we confirm that, we have this phone? Well, the easiest way is to send an SMS message to this phone number. Now, there's some security issues with that too, because the phone numbers can be cloned, but I mean, the probability of it happening is really low. So it's a good first step to use as a two-factor authentication. In addition to that, there's other apps that you can install that I mentioned, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, Duo Mobile, that generate a code on your phone to also prove that this is your phone and this is you logging into the website you're trying to access. So that's how two-factor authentication works in general, right? It proves that you know the password, and two, you are you because you have your device. As what you mentioned, secondly, you're correct. We can set up, many companies or many websites allow us to set up what we call a trusted device, right? Where if you log in once from a device and you know that this is a secure device, right? It's your personal computer, it's another computer in your house that only you or your wife have access to, or it's your work computer that's only used for work, for example, to log into work accounts, then you can set that device as a trusted device. And what that means is you'll two-factor authenticate once on it, you check the box, your browser will remember the fact that, you authenticated already twice, and that you're basically agreeing that nobody else is using this device. And it'll remember that for a certain period of time. Usually it's 30 to 60 days where you're not going to get prompted for a second factor for that application on that device. And then you'll get prompted again because the cookie expires or your key expires, and you authenticate again twice using your phone, and then it'll remember for another 30, 60 days. So that's a good way to kind of lessen the friction of two-factor authentication. But be aware that you only should do that on the devices that you have full control over and nobody else is logging in.
Gotcha. Very, very good. So number 5 was pretty deep. I think that's a very good advice, and that kind of explained some of the less known aspects of two-factor authentication, because if we like right away think about it, like it's every single time you have to get a text message. Well, not really. So on the trusted computer, but sometimes, like even if when your trusted computer is outside, like we went to Oregon, my computer kind of knows that, hey, I'm in Oregon now. I'm usually not in Oregon. We're in San Francisco Bay Area, and so it actually popped on me for a lot of my access. It actually wanted me to get a text message. So anyway, I think we beat that horse down. Number 6.
So number 6, and I did say two-factor authentication is better than passwords, but if for some reason you're not turning on two-factor authentication, make sure you're changing your passwords regularly, or at least, if you notice any hint of suspicious activity, right? It's much easier to change your password, and you can always use a password manager tool to keep your passwords and remember your passwords, and we'll cover that in our next training. So that's a teaser right there. Make sure that you're changing your passwords at the smallest sign of something that maybe a miss. Right.
What's the best practice, Boris, for changing passwords, like holistically, like going through your password manager, going through all of the accounts and sort of just like changing passwords? Is it quarterly, monthly? Sounds like a little bit of a challenge to do monthly, but what is your advice?
Yeah, monthly is going to be a challenge. And so I'm going to base it on what we're doing for businesses, right? So we are asking, or we're suggesting, or we're recommending that all of our clients change their passwords between 90 and 180 days, right? So it's either 2 or 3 or 4 times a year that all of our clients change their passwords for all the internal accounts, right? So your login to your computers get changed, and also many of the external accounts. For your personal, I would suggest at least twice a year. It should be something that you do. And again, any sign of any suspicious activity, any hint of an email that comes in and says, hey, somebody tried to gain access to your account, something like that, you want to change not just that password, but also all your other critical passwords, just to make sure that they didn't get access to anything else.
All right. Yeah. So that's very good. Number 6. Do we have a 7?
Yeah. And last one, again, given the fact that most of our life is on these devices, and also given the fact that, we're probably using this device more than anything else, but we also think that it's the most secure. We want to have an antivirus software on this device, just like we do on our computers, right? Even though we don't think that there are viruses that can be set up for mobile, there are. And there's more and more of them coming out every day, because people have figured out that this is now not only the least difficult way to get into your life, right? But also it stores the most information about your life. So we'll see a lot more attacks on mobile in the next couple of years. So at least, to protect yourself, let's start with the things that I've mentioned, but also think about purchasing a antivirus software for your device. And usually your provider, whether it's Verizon or AT&T, have some sort of service that they've already contracted with. And like for a couple bucks a month, you can have that software to help you protect your phone.
Very, very good. So I think this concludes this particular episode. I mean, we'll probably add more and more over time as new threats come out. But I think if you follow best practices, you'll be in much better shape and more protected than you were before watching this video. So we hope we brought you some value. ArcIT is an IT company that focuses on helping engineering, design, and architecture firms. Thank you very much for reminding me, Boris. And architecture firms. And look, if you are not working with us yet, we'd love a chance to earn your business. Go to getarchit.com. Don't search Google. Go getarchit.com and just click on Contact Us. Next upcoming, we have employee training, teams training on password management. So stay tuned for that. Until then, have a great day and thank you for watching.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.